good out of something like this, because indeed in our lives, basically that's what happens. The garbage piles up. And it's a funny thing if you think about it. The ultimate explosion into new life is death. And the entire life of an individual is spent trying to avoid that. And nobody ever does. Nobody ever succeeds. It's like the second coming of Jehoshua the Christ, as Jesus is, everybody who's been waiting for it has died. And so then we try to build security, and it seems as though there is no possible way. There is no possible way on the face of the earth to build a security because of the fact that the end is so well programmed. But the garbage piles up is a dissertation about the functioning of the mind. There was a Catholic saint of some years ago, I guess back in the Middle Ages of time. Her name was Teresa of Avila. And she said and made this statement, all that you need to do is look. Is to look. That's what she said. That was her solution, basically, to life. All that you need to do is to look. Jehoshua the Christ made a statement very similar to that, and he amplified it a little bit and said, this is what's required. Okay? And he said in page 781 in Matthew chapter 6, verse 22, that you must look for sure, but you must look via that which is the single eye. The light of the body is the eye. If your eye is single, your body will fill with light. So Teresa of Avila said, truthfully, that what you must do is look. And Jehoshua, the Christ, said, yes, you must look, but you must look with the single eye. Okay? And to look with the single eye is to look within. And that's basically what's being said. So we're trying to see, if you have the capacity to look, then you can find God. And that's what Bhagwan said. If you have the capacity to look, you'll find God. If you have the capacity to hear, you'll find His music. If you have the capacity to touch, every texture becomes that which is God's texture. There's a good sight to see. Yes. If you touch the rock, according to the Bhagwan, you'll find God. So we have to look. We have to look via the single eye. We have to touch. I'll tell you something right now, and I think the more that we've been doing these in the beginning series we do in the mornings, there's no other way. I can tell you right now, if your life is a mess, if the garbage has piled up, it's because you haven't thrown it out. You've let it pile up, and nobody else has been inside of your house, which is your mind, but you. The garbage is in there, and it's stinking, and it's rancid because you've let it pile up. And now we get to a point where we're starting to look at some advice and some understanding from people. We're looking at the Bible, for instance, in these morning sessions in an entirely different way. We're not looking the way we used to look. We don't look at the Bible as a religious document anymore. We look at it as a cosmic psychological direction. What do you have to do? And that's what we're talking about. Who takes out the garbage in your house? Well, you may identify who takes out the physical garbage, but the important thing is that inside of each one of our heads is garbage which is piled up, and piled up. And garbage inside of your head does the same thing as garbage inside of your house. It causes problems. It causes disease. And it causes all kinds of difficulty. And the hardest thing to get people to do is to start throwing the garbage out. Very difficult thing to do. Because we are institutionalized by the system that our salvation, if you would, comes in communicating with other people, going to other places, taking part in seminars and all of these different types of things, and not understanding that what we have to really do is start paying attention to ourselves. And really start very, very swiftly to look inside of ourselves and get to know ourselves. Because what we have done is we've paid attention to church, we've paid attention to systems, we've paid attention to our employer, we've paid attention to our family, and all of these things we've paid attention to have led us to ignore the fact of who we are, and so that when we find out as we start to get a little bit older, we start to get sick, that we're a stranger to ourselves. We know everything about religion, we know everything about government, we know everything about our job, but we know nothing about ourselves. And then we've never looked inside of ourselves, and it's just like if you look in your garage or wherever you keep your garbage in the basement or wherever, if you don't look, you don't realize it's piling up. When we talk about touching that spot, okay, that's an important thing. There is no way you're going to get out of this life. There is no way you're going to find any benefits out of this life. There is no way you're going to find anything that is security or prosper or anything else. There's no way you're going to turn your life around from being the mess that it is unless you touch that spot. You have to do that. One of the things we showed this morning, before Sarah could be ready to give birth to the child of promise, what had to be done? Abraham had to do certain things. If he didn't do it, forget about it. You have a woman within inside of here in the consciousness, which is the spirit. That woman is barren. And unless you do certain things in the same way that Abraham had to do them, which talked about understanding the left and the right side, unless you do those things, the woman will stay barren. Once you decide to do these things, the woman will no longer be barren, and the woman will give birth, and that will be the child within you who will be the child of promise. And then you will have the balance, because you'll have the child Ishmael, you'll have the child Isaac. And they will have to coexist, although they won't live with one another. But they'll have to coexist. But right now, we don't have any child of promise. All we have is the beaten Ishmael, who's never been sent out to the desert, and it's hell inside. It's exactly what went on between Hagar and, give me your name, Sarah. It's exactly what went on. Fighting, conflict, and all of that type of business, which is described beautifully in the Bible. But here's the mistake. You touch. And what are you going to touch? You're going to touch the pineal gland of the brain. You're going to touch that, which is the divine aspect of the mind. You're going to touch that through your meditation. But here's where the mistake comes. And this is something that you really should listen to very carefully, because it is a terrible mistake, and it is what causes us not to see any results in our lives and in the lives of others around us when we make this touch. It happens in the Bible. Moses is told, touch the rock, and the water will flow. I mean, come on. You know, this is more hocus pocus, Blackstone the magician or what? What is this all about? There's a reason for all of this, because the rock is talking about that which is the pineal gland, the pineal stone, and the idea is if you touch that, the water will flow, the truth will flow within your consciousness. Moses makes a fatal mistake, and it's accounted here on page 136 of the Bible. And for the rest of you, if you look in the book of Numbers, in Numbers chapter 20, you know, just a little bit of housekeeping here. Al, I heard that thing go off a few minutes ago, and I didn't see anybody come. Okay. That's fine. Look what happens when Moses is told to touch the rock and the water will flow. Look what happens. It says in Numbers chapter 20, verse 11, what does it say? Moses lifted his hand, and with his rod he hit the rock twice. There's the problem. You can call it religion, you can call it New Age, you can call it whatever you want to call it. Once you have added anything of your own, it's done. Oh, sure, you'll get some kind of a return. But what's the problem with Moses? He never could see the promised land. Why? Because he kept entering his own consciousness, his own mind, his own ideas, and he didn't make it. So if you're going to touch, you touch. But don't bring anything. Don't bring any of your gimmicks. Don't bring any of your ideas. Don't bring the way somebody told you how to meditate. Don't bring the way somebody told you how to say this or how to say that or how to look at this or how to focus on that. That's not what you're told to do. You're told to touch. And all you have to do in order to touch is direct the energy within you.